If we examine ancient Egyptian art, including drawings, murals, and statues, we will notice that the overwhelming majority of Egyptians appeared without a mustache or beard, and many of them also shaved their heads completely. This is in contrast to their neighbors from other civilizations in the Levant, Mesopotamia, and Persia, in which kings and individuals appear with long hair on their heads and thick, carefully braided mustaches on their chins. The truth is that in very ancient times in Egypt, especially in the pre-dynastic era, the situation was very different, meaning that the Egyptians were keen to grow a thick beard and grow long hair as a sign of manhood, wisdom, and love. Some statues from the pre-dynastic period were found, showing people with long beards, as you can see. However, with the beginning of the dynastic era, the Egyptians' view of mustache, a thick beard, and long head hair changed completely, and their view of the thick beard and mustache transformed from a symbol of masculinity, wisdom, and high status to a symbol of uncleanliness, low social status, and lack of interest in appearance. However, despite this, there is very little historical evidence of the continuation of the custom of growing a beard and mustache among some individuals of ancient Egyptians, such as, for example, the statue of Prince Ra-Hetep, who lived in the era of the 4th dynasty in the Old Kingdom, as well as the cover of the wooden mummy's coffin of Ankif, who was one of the official figures in Asyut and lived in the era of the 12th dynasty, and finally the mummy of Commander Ose-Bam and Pharaoh, who was one of the most skilled military commanders in the history of ancient Egypt and was the commander of the armies of King Thutmose III. As you can see, he had a long beard and relatively thick hair. Gradually, the custom of growing a beard and mustache disappeared among the ancient Egyptians. The custom of shaving the facial hair completely has spread, and in many cases the entire head and body is shaved. This act became widespread, especially among temple priests. In many ancient archaeological tombs, some shaving, beauty, and adornment tools, such as mirrors and razors, were found. Well, why despite this, there are many statues, murals, and drawings in which many ancient Egyptian figures appear with a beard that has a strange and distinctive shape and is different from the bark that appeared in the monuments of other Middle Eastern civilizations. The truth is that this beard was not real, but it was a fake beard that was mostly made of some metals such as gold and silver, and it was attached to the face by a thin band that was wrapped around the head from above, and it was worn by kings on important occasions and religious celebrations to indicate their affiliation to the god Osiris. They are imitated by his appearance, which is depicted in many drawings and sculptures with a long, thin beard. During the king's life, the artificial beard he wore was characterized by its straight, downward shape. After his death, this beard was depicted in drawings and statues with the lower part of it turned upwards, indicating that the king had died and was now among the gods, according to ancient Egyptian belief. The funny thing is that not only male kings wore artificial beards. Queen Hatshepsut, who ruled Egypt for 21 years in the 18th dynasty and is considered one of the most successful rulers of ancient Egypt, has statues of her wearing a fake beard, like the rest of Egypt's male kings. In the end, I hope you liked the video, and if you really liked it, do not forget to click like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell sign so that you will receive a notification or any new video will be uploaded. Hidden away in the Bata Valley, south of the Lor Lindu National Park in Sulawesi, Indonesia, are hundreds of ancient megalithic structures. These mysterious stone formations have fascinated researchers and locals alike. Let's explore the enigma of the Bata Valley megaliths. Let's delve even deeper into the mystical world of the bizarre megaliths of the Bata Valley. Buckle up for an extended exploration. In the heart of Sulawesi, Indonesia, where ancient forests whisper secrets and mist dances among the hills, lies the Bata Valley, a place where time seems to stand still. Here, the earth cradles an enigma, hundreds of megalithic structures, their origins lost in the mists of antiquity. Join us as we unravel the mysteries etched in stone. The Bata Valley, cocooned within the embrace of the Lore Lindu National Park, guards its secrets fiercely. As we venture deeper, we encounter these silent sentinels, megaliths scattered across the landscape like forgotten guardians. Their weathered surfaces bear witness to epochs long past. Imagine standing before a megalith, an ancient storyteller frozen in stone. Some depict warriors with elongated limbs, their eyes fixed on distant horizons. Others portray wise elders, their expressions etched with wisdom or perhaps sorrow. What stories do they hold? Whose memories linger here? Archaeologists grapple with time's elusive threads. Were these megaliths hewn millennia ago? Theories abound, Neolithic artisans shaping their visions, or perhaps a more recent hand. The stones remain silent, revealing nothing of their age. Who were the architects of this stone symphony? We search for clues. Southeast Asian cultures, whispers of distant connections, yet the Bata Valley megaliths defy categorization. Were they memorials to ancestors, cosmic markers, or altars to forgotten gods? Local legends weave a tapestry of intrigue. A rapist turned to stone, a village protector punished. Some believe the megaliths possess hidden powers able to shift, vanish, or channel energies. Perhaps they bridge our world with realms beyond, where time dances differently. As we stand amidst the weathered stones, we honor the unknown hands that shaped them. The Bata Valley megaliths beckon us to listen, to hear the echoes of ancient footsteps, to glimpse the veiled past. And so we continue our quest, seeking answers in the silence of stone. Did you know that all kinds of strange creatures are found in Egypt from time to time and are regularly caught on camera? In recent times, a faceless monster with tusks, supernatural beings, and even something that could be a real alien have been found in the land of the Pharaohs. It's worth a look. In this episode, I'll show you the strangest and most wonderful creatures in Egypt that have been caught on camera. When we talk about Egypt, the first thing that comes to mind is the hot sand in the middle of which are tombs, pyramids, temples, the Sphinx, and other architectural structures. But don't forget that Egypt is not just a dry desert. The Nile River flows through the country, a huge river, and Egypt itself overlooks the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea. And sometimes the seas offer surprises. For example, in 2017, a strange, faceless monster was discovered on one of the Egyptian beaches. While walking along the shore, a resident came across this frightening creature. In fact, teeth are the only thing this creature possesses. There are no eyes or anything else on its head. It's scary and hard to identify its kind. Scientists are still unable to guess the type of creature that was washed up on the Egyptian shore, and the fishermen cannot help them. Despite their experience, they had never seen anything like it before. According to one theory, the monster could be a mutated deep-sea form. Not a bad theory, but it hasn't been confirmed 100%. It's terrifying. Egypt is the land of beauty, crocodiles, scarabs, and, as it turned out, mutants. In August 2015, a local resident was digging a well when he suddenly stumbled upon something unusual. He didn't find a precious treasure underground. Instead, he dug this creature out of the ground. A small, strange creature with long limbs, missing features, and reddish-brown skin and bulging black eyes. The first thing that comes to mind is that it's an alien. It even looks a bit like the aliens from the movie Men in Black. But what is it? When pictures of the creature appeared on the internet, scientists and internet users also shared them. but they were unable to give a clear answer. From their point of view, the creature could be an underground alien or a deformed human fetus. And of course, some said it was all fake. But what does this creature really represent? What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments. The 2011 Egyptian revolution was unforgettable in many ways. But amidst all the chaos, a strange creature appeared to people. A video appeared on the internet showing footage of his glowing shadow, a ghost on a horse during the Egyptian unrest. Many people believe that this shadow is nothing more than a horseman at the end of the world. Moreover, he is the fourth horseman of the apocalypse and death. The creature was unnatural, and there were crowds of people during the riots. It would be unrealistic for a horse to pass through a lot of people. When the video appeared on the internet, users started discussing it. One said it was just a skillful edit, while others believed that the true horsemen of the fight for extinction had already come to Egypt. The revolution ended shortly after it appeared. But could this mean something? This video was captured by a surveillance camera in an Egyptian hospital. At first, nothing happens. A man enters the building, and the automatic doors open for him. But after a while, the doors start opening and closing on their own, even though no one is around. A strange shadow appears in the reflection of the doors, and its nature is still unknown. Some people think it's the ghosts of kneeling children, and some think it's a group of ghosts like human bodies. Skeptics have another position. They say it's just a glare that doesn't even deserve to be investigated. But what if it's not an ordinary glare? What if a mysterious creature or a real ghost was caught on camera? Even though it sounds silly, we shouldn't rule it out. Egypt is proud not only of the strange creatures that appear here and there, but also of many things, including exciting discoveries, because this country has a very long history. Stay tuned, my friends. In the second part of the episode, I will show you the discoveries and interesting things that have been discovered in Egypt. Everyone knows about the Pyramid of Khufu, but not many people know that at the foot of the pyramid you can find a lot of important things. For example, in the past century, in the hiding places at the foot, scientists found Khufu ships, a full-size rowing boat that had been sealed under the pyramid for over 4,500 years. The first ship was found in 1954, and the second in 1987. The second was much smaller than the first. This discovery is interesting because, according to one theory, the body of Khufu was transported from Memphis to Giza to be buried on this ship. But some scientists believe that this is not the case. Khufu's ship could not have any practical meaning, but rather symbolic and sacred. It was sealed at the bottom of the pyramid so that the pharaoh in the afterlife could sail on the celestial boat with the sun god Ra. Secret passages. There are many mysteries associated with the Egyptian pyramids. It is well known that the pyramids are full of traps and secret passages that are impossible to get out of, and the secret passages lead to the pyramids. However, they are not easy to find. But a 33-year-old Egyptian named Nagy from the village of Haram discovered a passage made of stone slabs while digging in his own garden. It led directly to the Pyramid of Khufu. Archaeologists believe that in ancient times this passage led to a secret temple on the banks of the Nile, but they still have a long way to go to find the true purpose of the ancient tunnel. The silver pharaoh's tomb. Unlike the legendary King Tutankhamun, Pharaohs is not very famous. Not much is known about his tomb. However, it is in no way inferior to the tomb of Tut. The silver sarcophagus in which Psausanizai was buried was considered more expensive than any golden sarcophagus in ancient Egypt. In fact, because of the sarcophagus, the place was nicknamed the Silver Pharaoh's Tomb. The tomb was discovered by Pierre Montet. In ancient Egypt, they used to say that gold is the flesh of the gods and silver is the bones of the gods. In those days, silver was valued twice as much as gold. This was because gold production in the country reached 40 tons per year, and silver deposits were located outside of Egypt. This extraordinary discovery testifies to the immense wealth of Salzani's eye. Today, the treasures found in the tomb of Salzani's eye are kept in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. Everyone can see the wealth of the ancient ruler up close. Many discoveries cannot surpass the discovery of the silver pharaoh's tomb, but they do exist. Like the Valley of the Golden Mummies, which was found in 1996 in the Bahariya Oasis. Zahi Hawass, who discovered the valley, became famous among Egyptologists after this discovery. After that, about 250 mummies were found. It's hard to imagine that such a place remained a secret for so long. The valley got its name from the unusual mummies wearing golden masks. This is evidence of the high origin of the buried people. Some mummies were placed in clay coffins to preserve the exact shape of the heads. The drawings and other decorations on the coffins are also exquisite. Scientists estimate that the total number of burials here is about 100, dating back to the Greco-Roman period. The ancient pyramids in Giza have astonished the human race for centuries. Here, dear viewer, are 10 pieces of evidence that prove the greatness of the new Egyptian civilization and the extent of the amazing progress in building the pyramids. Scientists concluded that building the Great Pyramid alone took the effort of 20,000 workers 20 years. It is astonishing that a pyramid could be built with such meticulous detail and enormous size, the limited capabilities in the era of the Pharaohs, in a time of only 20 years. The Great Pyramid consists of 2.3 million stones, which each one weighs from 1 to 15 tons. According to archaeologists, these stones were extracted from a nearby source. But how were the workers able to transport stones of this weight to the construction site? There is a theory. It says that a huge group of workers pushed these stones across a wooden platform. But this is difficult to happen, as there is no type of wood that can bear such heavy stones, whereas if you calculate the time required to build the Great Pyramid, you will come to the conclusion that the workers had to place a new stone every 2.5 minutes, which seems impossible. The labyrinths under the pyramids were carved out of limestone, and the passageways always reveal new facts and hidden chambers that were unknown to man for thousands of years. The recent discovery by archaeologist Brian Forster supports the hypothesis of the existence of advanced technology before our time, where Forster discovered the presence of 20 carefully carved boxes of granite, each box adorning about 100 tons. Experts believe that these boxes are for burying sacrifices of bulls, but no bulls were found in them, and therefore these boxes remain a mystery until today. There are many theories about the pyramids related to with the pyramids on one line with the North Pole, especially the Great Pyramid, for scientists to be able to determine with certainty how the ancient Egyptians built the Great Pyramid with this precision of coordinates. The north-south axis is consistent with the true north-south axis, and the ancient Egyptians did not have the North Star as we have it today as evidence of the true north, which it makes the matter confusing for scientists. But you can imagine that the Great Pyramid is more accurate than its alignment with the north than the modern Meridian building in London. Samples of the material used in building the pyramids were analyzed, and although their content has not been determined and technology has not been able to recreate them, most of them are made of gypsum. It was used to strengthen the connections of huge stones, and this material is harder than the stones themselves and has remained in place for thousands of years. There are many columns inside the Great Pyramid, and this pyramid is the only one of the 3 pyramids that was built with columns. The corners of these columns appear to correspond to celestial bodies, such as the alignment of the pyramids with the poles. And there is no evidence from ancient Egyptian culture to reveal how this regularity was achieved. There are also theories that say that these columns are for ventilation, although most of them do not reach the surface of the pyramid to obtain ventilation. In a time when the pyramids had huge doors with hinges, and these doors were discovered when the Great Pyramid was first explored. Once upon a time, an ordinary person could open the door easily from the inside due to the perfect balance of this door. Here we are talking about a door weighing 20 tons that moved easily with the force of the hand. How these mountains were carved and placed with such precision is still a mystery. So how were they able to find a balance for this huge weight? The Great Pyramid was covered with white polished limestone, which was called the covering stones, made the pyramid shine like a precious stone in the middle of the desert. When the Great Pyramid was covered with this covering, it had a smooth, flat appearance. A huge earthquake occurred in the year 1303 AD, causing this covering to be lost, and these stones were used later to build mosques and castles. At first glance, we find that the Great Pyramid appears to have 4 sides. But if you look from above the pyramid, you will find that each side is divided into 2, which makes the pyramid have 8 sides. It is believed that these folds were in order to secure the stone covering in place. Others believe that it is due to corrosion. Whatever the reason, it appears to be astonishingly accurate. When the stone coffin of Khufu was discovered and examined, several questions came to mind. The coffin was huge, weighing about 3.75% a ton, and its dimensions were so large that it could not be placed in the room. Therefore, it was placed while the pyramid was being built. The coffin is made from a solid, hollow piece of granite. Any means on Earth have existed to do this for 5,000 years. In 2015, a thermal survey of the pyramids revealed that there are 3 areas under the pyramids that radiate some heat. Some said that there are small corridors that lead to hidden rooms. Others believe that these heat is generated by advanced technology, and more thermal spots were discovered in the upper half of the Great Pyramid and still represent one of the pyramid's hidden mysteries. This discovery not only solves the long-standing mystery of how the pyramids were constructed, but also sheds light on the intricate relationship between ancient Egyptian civilization and the Nile River. Have you ever wondered how the ancient Egyptians managed to build the majestic pyramids of Giza and other monumental structures in the desert? For centuries, this question has puzzled archaeologists and historians alike. But now, a groundbreaking discovery may finally provide the answer we've been seeking. In a recent study published in the journal Communications, Earth, and Environment, a team of researchers from the University of North Carolina, Wilmington made an astonishing find. Using satellite imagery, sediment samples, and geophysical surveys, they uncovered evidence of an extinct 64-kilometer-long 40-mile branch of the Nile River that once flowed near the pyramids. This ancient waterway, which the researchers have named the Ahrimat Branch after the Arabic word for pyramids, appears to have played a crucial role in the construction of these magnificent structures. Many of the pyramids, dating back to the Old and Middle Kingdoms, have causeways that lead directly to the branch, suggesting that it served as a vital transportation route for workers and building materials. According to the study, the Ahrimat Branch was a bustling waterway up to 6,000 years ago, surrounded by freshwater marshes and floodplains. It's likely that ancient Egyptian cities and settlements thrived along its banks, with inhabitants living on natural levees and islands, jaziras formed by the river. However, following an intense drought, the river branch gradually dried up and became buried under windblown sand and farmland. Historical maps from 1911 show the branch's steady eastward movement, with the Dashur Lake being the last remaining trace of this once mighty tributary. This discovery not only solves the long-standing mystery of how the pyramids were constructed, but also sheds light on the intricate relationship between ancient Egyptian civilization and the Nile River. It highlights the ingenuity and resourcefulness of the ancient Egyptians, who were able to harness the power of this waterway to transport massive stone blocks and create some of the most enduring wonders of the ancient world. The revelation of the Ahrimat Branch is a testament to the importance of continued archaeological exploration and the invaluable insights it can provide about our past. As we unravel the secrets of this lost river, we gain a deeper appreciation for the remarkable achievements of the ancient Egyptians and the vital role that water played in shaping their civilization. Uncovering the vampire of Venice. Face reconstruction reveals chilling details. In a chilling revelation from the 16th century, scientists have reconstructed the face of a so-called vampire buried with a brick jammed into her mouth. Unearthed from a mass grave of plague victims, her haunting visage offers a window into the dark superstitions that gripped Europe centuries ago. In 2006, archaeologists working on the Venetian island of Lazaretto Nuovo made a ghastly discovery: the remains of a woman buried face down with a brick forced into her mouth. Over 400 years ago, in the grip of the plague outbreak of 1576, some believed this woman was a vampire who would rise from the grave to feed on the corpses around her. So they took a grisly precaution, wedging the brick between her jaws to prevent her from spreading the fatal disease. Now, Brazilian forensic artist Cicero Moraes has used cutting-edge 3D modeling to reconstruct the face of this unnamed vampire, revealing chilling new details. The lifelike rendering shows a woman with sunken eyes, weathered skin, a pointed chin, and a slightly crooked nose. Strands of silver hair still cling to her skull. Moraes' work allowed researchers to investigate whether shoving a brick into the mouth was even practically possible after death. Forensic anthropologist Matteo Barini said,
"By identifying her as a vampire, a supposed source of the plague, they used the brick as protection to prevent her from spreading the infection."
Using test subjects, the team found the brick could be wedged into the mouth without damaging bone or flesh, providing grisly evidence of this antiquated vampire exorcism custom. Skeletal analysis revealed the woman was around 61 years old, likely from a lower social class given her grain and vegetable-based diet. As the plague ravaged Europe, outlandish vampire myths proliferated, with villagers trying to find supernatural explanations for the unstoppable deaths. Gravediggers likely spread the lore after finding partially decomposed corpses with shroud fragments in their mouths. While the vampire existence was merely paranoid folklore, the face reconstruction vividly captures the very real fears that once gripped the survivors of the plague. A stark reminder of the power of superstition in humanity's darkest hours. Incredible discovery. The first mother-daughter burial from Roman Austria. In an amazing archaeological find, scientists have uncovered what appears to be the first documented mother-daughter burial from the Roman period in Austria. Using cutting-edge scientific methods, researchers were able to unravel the mysteries surrounding these 1,800-year-old remains and reveal their incredible story. 20 years ago, construction workers in the city of Wels, Austria, made a bizarre discovery: a grave containing the skeletons of two people embracing each other, and at least one horse. Initially, archaeologists thought this was an early medieval double burial. But a new comprehensive investigation by researchers from the University of Vienna has revealed startling new details. The latest bioarchaeological and archaeogenetic techniques showed this grave is actually 500 years older than previously believed. It dates back to the 2nd or 3rd century AD, placing it firmly in the Roman period of Austrian history. Even more astounding, genetic analysis confirmed the two human skeletons were a biological mother and daughter buried together at the same time. Osteologist Sylvia Kirchengast said,
"This is the first burial from Roman antiquity in Austria, where we could genetically identify a biological mother and daughter buried simultaneously. It's an extraordinary find."
Through radiocarbon dating, osteological examination, and analysis of ancient DNA, the researchers pieced together revealing details. The mother was around 40 to 60 years old, while her daughter was approximately 20 to 25 when they died. Archaeologist Dominic Hagman said,
Roman burials with horses were extremely rare. but to have a mother and daughter interred this way is completely unique for the region and time period.
Grave goods and horse remains provided clues about the high status of these individuals. One theory is that both died from illness and were buried following late Iron Age traditions of including the older woman's horse. This incredible discovery offers a rare glimpse into familial bonds, rituals, and status in Roman Austria nearly 2 millennia ago. It's an archaeological treasure that continues revealing new insights about our ancient past. The advancement of DNA collection and analysis technology has had significant consequences for anthropology and archaeology, resulting in surprising revelations about genetic connections between modern populations and ancient peoples. In the latest example of this fascinating phenomenon, a team of genetic scientists, in collaboration with representatives of the indigenous Blackfoot Nation, have just completed a study that establishes an unexpected relationship between modern Blackfoot people and some of the earliest inhabitants of the Americas. We show that the genomics of sampled individuals from the Blackfoot Confederacy belong to a previously undescribed ancient lineage that diverged from other genomic lineages in the Americas in late Pleistocene times. The scientists and their Native American colleagues wrote in an article published in the journal Science Advances. Using multiple complementary forms of knowledge, we provide a scenario for Blackfoot population history that fits with oral tradition and provides a plausible model for the evolutionary process of the peopling of the Americas. The ancient group linked to the modern Blackfoot genome apparently came into being approximately 18,000 years ago, during the glaciation stage of the last ice age. As the study authors mentioned, this is the first time this particular genetic lineage has been detected in the DNA of any Native American people, giving the Blackfoot people a unique identity that separates them from other existing Native American groups. Archaeological finds and oral histories suggest that the indigenous communities who comprise the nations of the Blackfoot Confederacy first occupied their traditional homelands in southern Saskatchewan and Alberta in Canada and northern Montana in the United States more than 10,000 years ago. The legends tell of Blackfoot ancestors pursuing herds of bison through deep valleys and along huge lakes carved out by the retreat of the glaciers as the last ice age was ending. This new DNA-based evidence certainly supports such a contention, linking the Blackfoot people to the very earliest stages of the evolution of modern indigenous groups, back to a time before the glaciers began to melt away. For the purposes of this new study, the researchers collected saliva samples and accompanying DNA from 6 living members of the Blackfoot Nation. These individuals were specifically from the blood tribe Kainai group that is currently based in southern Alberta. Additionally, they obtained permission from the Blackfeet Tribal Historic Preservation Office to collect DNA samples from the skeletal remains of 4 Blackfoot ancestors kept under their curation. They were also allowed to extract DNA from the skeletal remains of 3 Blackfoot ancestors that are stored at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. Based on radiocarbon dating, it is believed that these deceased individuals all lived between 100 and 200 years ago. After completing a comparative analysis of the old and new DNA of the Blackfoot people, the genetic scientists involved in the study concluded that they all belong to the same genetic lineage. This research served to demonstrate that these genomic patterns are grounded in the traditional Blackfoot Confederacy homelands at the time of European contact. But the scientists and their Native American colleagues wanted to delve much deeper into the genetic history of the Blackfoot people. The idea was to complete another comparative analysis of genetic material, but this time the study would compare the Blackfoot DNA, both ancient and modern, with genetic samples taken from other Native American people separated from the Blackfoot Nation in space and time. This would identify Blackfoot ancestral relationships with other indigenous groups. In the existing genetic data bank, An ancient lineage has been identified that can be associated with all modern Native American peoples. The goal of the new study was to discover when the Blackfoot lineage diverged from that common ancestral group. Much to the surprise of the research team, they discovered that the Blackfoot genetic line dates back to approximately 16,000 BC, or to the waning days of the last great period of glaciation. It had been assumed that the Blackfoot people would have genetic relationships with some of their traditional neighbors in southern Canada and the northern United States. But it has long been known that the Blackfoot language has minimal overlap with other indigenous languages in that region, specifically with the languages grouped under the label Central Algonquian that were spoken by the various Algonquian peoples who occupied the Great Lakes region to the east. Now that it is known that the ancestors of the modern Blackfoot people came from a separate and previously undiscovered genetic lineage, it is much easier to identify them as a distinct people with a unique history. Certain elements of Blackfoot are older than Proto-Algonquian language and likely were spoken by indigenous peoples in the aboriginal homelands of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the study authors explained in their Science Advances article. Cleopatra is one of the most famous rulers of Egypt. There are legends about her rule. After her death, she left behind many secrets and artifacts, one of which was recently found. It seemed like it could change all of history. Let's find out. Last fall, archaeologists were excavating in a national park in Jerusalem when they stumbled upon an interesting artifact, a nearly 2,000-year-old skull seal decorated with an image of the biblical tree, the fruit of which was legendarily used to make ointment and perfume for the famous Queen Cleopatra. Apparently, the artifact could belong to Cleopatra herself. Scientists found an inscription on a seal with an image of a plant, which is a type of cedar simon. In ancient times, it was expensive and was used to make incense. Some scholars believe that Pope Simon, who appears on the artifact, often gave it to Cleopatra and then made a special balm for the queen to use to change her appearance and make her more beautiful and youthful. The artifact could change history, because if we can find this species or at least grow it artificially, scientists will be able to create a drug for rejuvenation. However, many scholars believe that the bar simon is an artifact that has already disappeared, so we hope to plant another equally exciting artifact that may not change the entire history of the world, perhaps just the history of Egyptology. More precisely, it is not only an artifact, but it is actually an edifice, because I am talking about Cleopatra's tomb. In fact, until now, no one knows for sure where the legendary queen lies. Her grave was never found. This is surprising, because scientists were able to find the graves of pharaohs who ruled long before Cleopatra. In any case, Cleopatra's case is already a major advance, and scientists may soon make a major discovery. In 2020, an international team of archaeologists has released preliminary data from a study of a closed tomb in the ancient Egyptian city of Osiris. 2 gilded mummies were found in the cemetery, one of which may belong to Queen Cleopatra. Firstly, this is indicated by the fact that the head of the statue representing Cleopatra was found during excavations at the site. Second, the mummies were originally covered in gold leaf, indicating the high social status of the buried mummies. Third, one of the mummies had an image of a beetle engraved on gold paint. It is a symbol of royal power and rebirth, which was used by the rulers of Egypt. Finally, in the sarcophagus of Eris Magna, the remains of Cleopatra's alleged ancestors have actually been found. Many factors indicate that the queen's mummy has finally been found, which means that we will soon be able to learn more about Cleopatra. For example, we can find out how she died because scholars are still arguing about it, or we can find out exactly what Cleopatra looked like when she was alive. The life of this ruler was unusual, mysterious, and interesting. Stay with us to find out all the most strange, unexpected, even mystical and terrifying details about the life of Egypt's most famous female ruler. If what archaeologists found in the sarcophagus of Iris Magna turns out to be Cleopatra's mummy, scientists will be able to determine the exact cause of her death. Yes, in reality, no one knows exactly what the cause of her death was, but it is known 100% that she lived her own life. Cleopatra did this to avoid becoming a prisoner of Octavian after Rome invaded Egypt. The most widespread version is that she killed herself with the help of a poisonous snake. It is said that the woman's faithful servants brought her a basket of figs, in which were the poisonous creep that bit the queen, and she soon died. According to another version, she took the usual poison that was in his golden dagger. But modern scholars believe that the cause of her death was not the bite of a venomous snake, but rather a whole poisonous mixture of opium, oat, and whiting plants. This makes sense because such a combination causes death within hours without any pain or change in appearance. Given that Cleopatra was concerned with appearance, it is unlikely that she would have subjected herself to long films and physical marks after a snake bite. However, her death remains a mystery. Speaking of beauty, the fact that Cleopatra was beautiful is known to everyone. This is how they appear in movies, cartoons, and books. It is also a common fact that she was so beautiful that men were ready to say goodbye to life with her just for one night. This all sounds great, but as it turns out, it's not true. She may have gotten rid of her lovers all night long, but the fact that she was an indescribable beauty is questionable. A few years ago, scientists examined a 2,000-year-old coin found in 2007 that depicted Cleopatra's face in profile. Along with many other discoveries with photographs of the queen, they discovered that she was an ordinary woman who clearly had not reached a high standard of beauty. She was short and fat, with a long, broad nose, big eyes, and narrow lips, but she literally charmed everyone. Why? It's all about her mind. She was described as an incredibly talented, intelligent girl, with persuasive speech, a confident voice, and an extensive knowledge of astronomy, philosophy, mathematics, and linguistics. She knew 7 to 10 foreign languages. There were no revolutionary translators in his court, so it is not surprising that she was admired by everyone around her. Cleopatra was not only a smart girl, she was an innovative girl who had a huge influence on the cosmetics of her time, and her methods of self-care are used even today indirectly. For example, one of Cleopatra's most famous features is her expressive black arrows over her eyes. The queen painted them not just for the sake of beauty. She knew that coal contains antimony, a substance that helps fight eye infections. This was not rare among all Egyptians at that time. Arrows also minimized exposure to the bright Egyptian sun. She also had extensive knowledge of chemistry, so she was well versed in many subjects. She also knew that honey had antibacterial properties, so she applied it to her skin as a whole. Cream to keep her skin soft and clean, she wipes her face with rose water. Even today, this ingredient is included in most tonics and cleansers. Among other things, Cleopatra was well versed in perfumery. She believed in the power of perfume not only as a cosmetic tool, but also as a tool of political persuasion. Thus, according to legend, Cleopatra doused the sails of her ship with perfume before she went on her first date with Mark Antony to make sure he smelled her before he saw her. Cleopatra was very skilled in chemistry and perfumery, and she even owned a perfume factory. That meant a lot because with her situation she couldn't be bothered. She simply ordered her subjects to have any perfume, but she herself loved to invent new perfumes that would help her in everyday life, as well as in negotiations. It is believed that she even wrote recipes for her distinctive perfumes, but the book was lost or burned in a fire in the Great Library of Alexandria. The ruins of Cleopatra's perfume factory in the Dead Sea near the city of Engedi. By the way, there is evidence that the factory also functioned as a health center. Some of the interior furnishings resemble those found in modern beauty parlors. Marriages and separations. Cleopatra came from the Macedonian Ptolemaic dynasty. Members of the royal family valued the purity of their lineage and practically did not allow themselves to marry members of other families. In other words, the Ptolemies had embraced incest. As a rule, many of Cleopatra's ancestors were associates with their cousins, and her parents were likely brother and sister. By the way, historians believe that incest may have been one of the reasons why Cleopatra's appearance was not actually the most beautiful. Anyway, according to this custom, Cleopatra was no exception in terms of incest. After the death of her father, Ptolemy VII, she began ruling Egypt with her younger brother. Then they married, but they were unable to coexist in a struggle for power, as her brother expelled her from Egypt, and she went to Rome, where she mobilized the support of Julius Caesar and made an alliance with him. The Romans conquered Alexandria, after which Cleopatra began brutally eliminating her rivals. After the war, she married her second younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, but he was also supposedly killed by Cleopatra when she tried to make her son her co-ruler. Overall, she was not only an intelligent ruler, but also a somewhat cruel ruler. The goddess. Cleopatra was a goddess in the literal sense of the word. It was not only because her subjects acted as if she had declared herself to be their own. Loder, the famous Greek writer and philosopher, wrote about this topic. According to him, Cleopatra had a divine manifestation because Isis was the goddess of the ideal of femininity and motherhood. Cleopatra called herself the new Isis and told her subjects that she was the embodiment of this god on earth and the reincarnation of the goddess. Blue History wrote that she often appeared in public wearing the sacred robes of Isis. In this, she was supported by Mark Antony, the Roman political general and lover of Cleopatra, who claimed to be the embodiment of Osiris on earth. This made sense because Osiris was the wife of Isis and the king of the afterlife. In general, Cleopatra worshipped not only Isis, it is believed that she tried on the images of various spending and betting goddesses. Cleopatra not only had divine images, but also possessed divine spending. Cleopatra easily spent large sums of money at her whim and could waste an enormous amount in one sitting. There is an interesting episode involving Mark Antony. Legend has it that Cleopatra once made a bet with him that she could spend 10 million seers in one meal. Scientists estimate this to be around 10 to 20 million US dollars in today's money. Couple bet. Cleopatra ordered a modest meal, and then her servants brought her a cup of vinegar. She then took off one of her peers, pulled out an expensive pearl, threw it into the vinegar, and watched it dissolve. She then drank a cup of vinegar, proving that she would do anything to win the bet. Modern scholars were skeptical about this story for a long time, but they conducted an experiment. After that, they took vinegar and pearls and did the same thing as Cleopatra. It turns out that the vinegar dissolved the calcium carbonate in the pearl, but this likely took longer than a full day. That's all. Tell me in the comments. What surprised them most in Cleopatra's life? Excavating the Church of St. Francis of Assisi, they uncovered an exceptional medical device, believed to be the first of its kind ever found in the country. These were no ordinary graves. They contained the skeletal remains of a man aged between 39 and 45, a young woman under 25, and a baby no more than 6 months old. Have you ever wondered how people in the past dealt with medical conditions before modern surgical treatments were available? Well, get ready to be amazed by an incredible archaeological find that sheds light on this very topic, a nearly 300-year-old medical prosthesis designed to help a man with a cleft palate. In the historic city of Krakow, Poland, archaeologists made a groundbreaking discovery that has captured the attention of the scientific community worldwide. While excavating the Church of St. Francis of Assisi, they uncovered an exceptional medical device, believed to be the first of its kind ever found in the country, and potentially in all of Europe. This remarkable artifact, known as a palatal obturator, was a prosthetic designed to fit into the roof of a man's mouth, replacing his hard palate and allowing him to live a more comfortable life with a cleft palate condition. Anna Spynek, an anthropologist from the Hersfeld Institute of Immunology and Experimental Therapy in Poland, expressed the significance of this find, stating, "This is probably the first such discovery not only in Poland but also in Europe. No such devices exist in institutional and private collections, Polish and foreign. The prosthesis itself is a true testament to human ingenuity. Composed of two distinct parts, it features an intricate metal plate crafted from a combination of copper, gold, and silver. This plate was designed to mimic the hard palate or roof of the mouth, replacing the missing or malformed structure. But that's not all. Attached to this metal plate is a carefully constructed wool pad, likely included to provide a comfortable and secure fit when the prosthesis was inserted into the mouth. The researchers discovered that this wool pad contained traces of silver iodide, a substance known for its powerful antimicrobial properties, suggesting that even in those times, steps were taken to prevent infection and promote healing. Measuring just 1.2 inches 3.1 centimeters in length and weighing a mere 0.2 ounces 5.5 grams, this prosthetic device was a true engineering marvel for its time. Its overall concave shape and arching design were meticulously crafted to mimic the natural contours of the human palate, allowing it to seamlessly integrate into the nasal cavity while leaving a hollow space in the mouth, just as a natural hard palate would. Imagine the profound impact this simple yet ingenious device had on the life of the man who used it. No longer did he have to struggle with the challenges of a cleft palate, such as difficulties with speech, swallowing, and breathing. This prosthesis opened up a world of possibilities, enabling him to communicate more clearly and enjoy the simple pleasures of eating with greater comfort and confidence. While it's difficult to assess how well the obturator fitted or how tight a seal it provided, as the authors of the study noted, modern-day patients struggling with similar health problems often describe the use of a prosthesis as providing significant improvements in speech clarity and increased comfort when eating. So the next time you appreciate the advancements in modern medicine, remember the remarkable ingenuity of our ancestors, who found ways to overcome their challenges, even in the absence of advanced technology and surgical procedures. This 300-year-old prosthesis is a testament to human resilience, creativity, and the boundless determination to improve quality of life, no matter the obstacles. In the heart of Pharaoh, a city with a rich history dating back to the 4th century BC, a team of archaeologists from Era Archaeologia embarked on an excavation that would uncover a remarkable piece of the region's Roman heritage. Over a vast 5,000 square meter area, destined for a modern real estate development, lay the remnants of a bygone era, waiting to be unveiled. As the archaeologists carefully excavated the site, they uncovered ancient Roman structures and, to their astonishment, 3 burials dating back to the 5th or 6th century AD. These were no ordinary graves. They contained the skeletal remains of a man aged between 39 and 45, a young woman under 25, and a baby no more than 6 months old. Francisco Correa, the project's head archaeologist, revealed that the discoveries were made in an old truck repair workshop, adding another layer of intrigue to the site's history. The graves themselves were not simple pits but carefully constructed tombs, indicating that these individuals may have held some economic status within the ancient Roman city of Osinoba. As the archaeologists delved deeper into the site, they uncovered evidence of looting from centuries past. Small bracelets, necklaces, and rings were likely stolen from the graves, leaving behind only the skeletal remains and the mystery of their identities. One compelling theory emerged: the proximity of the 3 graves suggests that these individuals may have been family members, bound together in life and eternity. However, as anthropologist Claudia Mayo cautioned, we cannot say anything for sure. Determined to unravel the secrets held within these ancient bones, the researchers planned to conduct DNA tests and isotopic analysis, techniques that could reveal crucial information about population movements and dietary habits, shedding light on the lives of these long-forgotten Romans. This remarkable discovery is just the latest in a series of archaeological treasures unearthed in Pharaohs, a city that once stood at the heart of the Roman Empire's western outpost. From a Roman game artifact believed to date back to the 1st century AD, discovered in 2020, to the iconic mosaic of the ocean god, a national treasure, the city continues to yield glimpses into its storied past. As the archaeologists carefully excavate and document each artifact, they piece together a narrative that spans centuries, connecting the present to the ancient world that once thrived in this very location. The graves, the mosaics, the pottery shards, and the coins all serve as tangible reminders of the indelible mark left by the Romans on this region, a legacy that endures to this day. In this episode, you will learn about what was discovered in the tomb of the richest pharaoh. Come on. A golden mask with blue lines depicting a young and serious face. Perhaps the most famous relic in the world. In one glance, millions of people will unambiguously name the owner of this mask, Tutankhamun, Amun or King Tut. There are these mysteries in these letters, but it would be strange to expect anything else from a 9-year-old boy who ascended the throne at that age and quickly married one of his sisters to strengthen the family, although it was a marriage of convenience. But the evidence shows that it was a happy marriage, and who can be named. The happy ones are those who were under the close supervision of the pharaoh. If we believe the scientific data, the pharaoh enjoyed recognition because of the correct decisions and because of the measures beneficial to society. For example, he invested actively in construction, including the construction of a temple for the god Amun-Ra. But his life is difficult to say was happy, and despite all the positive external factors, he was very weak. And despite his young age, he walked with a cane as a result of bone necrosis in his left foot. The young ruler suffered from a rare genetic disorder called elephant clip syndrome, where the bones in his neck were fused and his head could not be moved completely. His back was also curved due to scoliosis. He had a cleft palate, according to tests. Perhaps he was suffering from malaria. You have to admit that for the ruler, many diseases are very rare. At the very least, he is constantly cared for, bathed in the best bathrooms, and is assisted by expert doctors. But whatever the case, there was nothing that would help in treating congenital diseases, even in an advanced people like the Egyptians, as it is. He fell. He did not live long and died at the age of 19, but scientists did not understand the reason for this. It was believed that it was because he was hit in the skull. But archaeologists said that the destruction of the bone occurred when the golden mask was removed from water in the 20s. Another theory of death says that the boy fell during a chariot race, and this is strange. Also, it does not resemble reality very much, to put it mildly, and it is unlikely that people will be able to fully understand the reason unless we invent a time machine. But what we can explore now is the amazing tomb of King Tut. Surprisingly, it has remained in almost perfect condition and was not damaged by the hands of thieves or natural disasters. It was found at the beginning of the 20th century, and at first it was not known who it belonged to because the grave was suddenly very humble. It is not known whether this was due to his young age or whether it was due to his sudden death. It is just that in Egypt there were rules requiring 70 days to pass between death and burial at this time. It was impossible to prepare a suitable grave for it, so it ended up as people found it. But there are several relics worth noting. For example, there is an arch, a throne, an alabaster bowl, food, wine, and clean underwear. When these pieces were studied, scientists realized that they were much more valuable than people had previously thought. The dagger, the ornate golden sheath made of meteorite, is of incredible value. These artifacts were also made of materials from different countries at that time, which also helped scholars draw similarities and understand the relationships between these or those countries in previous years. Have you ever heard of the Saqqara complex? It is an ancient cemetery located on a plateau in the Nile Valley. It contains many ancient burials, tombs, and pyramids. It turns out that, among other things, An amazing tomb was hidden in this complex, which is estimated to be more than 4,400 years old. It was found a few years ago, but people were not able to enter it. This is not a building where you can just knock down the wall. It was important to have a clear, mathematically proven approach that does not damage the internal structure and opens up something new and wonderful for people. This is what happened. The blocked passages were finally overcome, and the researchers found themselves in a rectangular room measuring 10 meters long from north to south and 3 meters wide and high. There is a basement in the corner. It is assumed that this is the tomb of a high-ranking priest. It is surprising that there is no word about him in the legends. At the same time, his tomb is full of hieroglyphic writings and statues of the pharaohs. And it is not surprising that this tomb was called the unique shaft. In recent decades, the frescoes depict the high priest resting with his mother, his wife, and other relatives. And there are a number of unique letters that are not easy to decipher. Perhaps they will reveal to us the secret of who this man is, but it is difficult to believe that. After all, it was not in vain that the priests at that time were on the same level as the local gods. They established contacts with higher beings, and for this they obtained eternal recognition of the population and personally of the pharaohs and other segments of society. A royal hideout, speaking of the elite of society. Judging by the discoveries of modern scientists, there were tombs in which dozens of mummies of the pharaohs and their family members were present. About 40 of the greatest pharaohs rest in the same place. The place, and next to them, there are more than 6,000 precious pieces, each of which belongs to the era of the ruler in one way or another. 320, the royal cache of mummies that he is talking about, was in Thebes Cemetery, No. 320, its entrance is hidden in the rocks. All Egyptologists confirm that it is certainly one of the richest tombs in history. It also one of the most exceptional tombs and took 5 years to extract the items. The hot July sun, the smell of the sweat of dozens of workers lifting the finds, and the foul smell of torches made the work unbearable, but it was worth it. The antiquities were transported manually to the Nile River, where they were loaded onto a ship belonging to the Department of Antiquities and sent to scientists. Achievements of the ancient Egyptian civilization never ceased to amaze researchers and the general public. How were they able to create such structures and transform ancient Egypt into a true miracle? Perhaps they were helped by aliens because there is evidence that the pharaohs could have been the aliens themselves. Let us take a look at the ancient structures. Stonehenge in England, the Pyramid of the Sun in Mexico, the Nazca lines in Peru, and the pyramids in Egypt. These things are wonderful and full of secrets. The idea of how ancient people could have built them boggles the mind, according to some theorists. It was not people who built them. Aliens were the ones who did. Well, if they did not build them, they certainly led the construction process. Let us review the evidence. Let us take one of the mysteries of the ancient world, the Egyptian pyramids, about which nothing can be explained in detail, even through modern science. Therefore, theorists go further in their rulings and say the following: the pharaohs were hybrids between aliens and humans. At first glance, this seems unbelievable. What makes some people make such statements? Is there any evidence, or is it just empty talk that has no basis in truth? Or some mystery still surrounds the issue of how to build the pyramids. I am not just talking about pulling blocks on the ground and then lifting them, but about the absolute precision in building the pyramids as well from a practical standpoint. Anyone, not just theorists, should be amazed by the fact that the Pyramid of Khufu is the most accurate structure of all the structures and faces found to the north, or to the North Pole. There is also a category of theorists who argue that the pyramids were not built by extraterrestrials according to the hypothesis that before the ancient Egyptians there were another advanced civilization on Earth. that passed on their knowledge to the Egyptians before we got to the pharaohs. Let us take a look at some of the reasons that make people believe that aliens first descended to Earth and left it quietly, and ancient civilizations began to worship them as gods. Let us move to the Easter Island, where the giant stone heads of Moai are located. It may have been difficult to install. There is an opinion that aliens had a hand in it, but let us move to Bolivia, where there is a Pumapunku, which is a megalithic ritual complex of buildings that weighs tons. Moreover, if everything was transported, the stone blocks were paired very precisely, which means that the builders must have a deep understanding of geometry. There are quite a few of these amazing places and structures around the world. Alien hybridization. Let's go back to Egypt and take a look at the pharaoh, Akhenaten's brother, the father of King Tut. After studying the existing artifacts that depict Akhenaten's appearance, some have come to an important assumption that his eyes were. His skull is also extended, and the back of his head is greatly retracted. It seems as if he was not really from our world. Perhaps he was sent from there already. Look at this, where the pharaoh Akhenaten worshipped the disk of the sun. Do you think he was worshipping some kind of space device, such as a flying saucer? Possible. And what about the shape of his head? Some people believe that it came from the fact that the pharaoh was actually an alien hybrid. It is just speculation, or rather imagination. Was his head really enlarged? If we study ancient civilizations, we may discover that the elongated shape of the skull was something natural. Sometimes the skulls were deliberately distorted. Perhaps these skulls were a sign of nobility and belonging to a distinct class. The indigenous people of Australia believed that deformity makes a person more intelligent and brings him closer to the world of spirits. The Africans confirmed their high social status with this shape of the head. It is also possible that the deformed head resulted from a genetic mutation. What about this possible evidence in favor of the Egyptian pharaohs being outside the planet? On Earth, there is a genetic study indicating that the lineage of the Egyptian pharaohs was subjected to deliberate genetic manipulation by a technologically advanced civilization outside the Earth. It is claimed that it showed the presence of anomalies in the genes of the pharaoh Akhenaten. In short, it seems that he carries strange genes. Finally, there is an ancient Egyptian text called the Tully Papyrus. These papers are considered. It tells about past events of special value. But the real treasure for the ophthalmologist is Tully's papers. In 1933, Alberto Tully, director of the Egyptian branch of the Vatican Museum, was wandering around the local market in Cairo. He found in one of the antique stores unusual papers containing hieroglyphic letters. He could not buy them due to their high price, but he was allowed to make a copy. Then Tully turned to a specialist for translation. It turned out that the papers talked about a circle of fire appearing in the sky, something that did not resemble the sun. It seemed like a report from alien sightings, right? How true is the information? Was it true that the papers were original in themselves? After all, scientists could have looked at the copies, but the truth is that the original papyrus disappeared under mysterious circumstances. And when Tully died, the copies also disappeared. In general, the story is questionable, but it could be true. As you can see, perhaps the pharaohs were aliens, although there is no evidence. But there is evidence and theory that aliens have gone to Earth and affected other cultures and regions. Stay with us to learn more about these theories and other facts about aliens. The Dogon people in southeastern Mali have passed on ancient astronomical knowledge from generation to generation. For thousands of years, according to research, the Dogon people believed these things, and all of these are scientific facts. They have believed since ancient times that the planets revolve around the sun, that the Earth and the other planets revolve around their axis, that Saturn has rings, and that Jupiter has 4 large satellites. They knew and believed that there was a star Sirius, which was actually a double star. Its companion star was invisible to the eye and revolved around the main Sirius, but no one until the late 9th century had guessed the existence of Sirius, and yet the Dogon people had always known about it. This indicates that they were told about Sirius by an advanced civilization that came to the planet on a flying saucer. Since you have arrived here, you are interested in history and obscure topics. Let's continue. Tiahuanaco is an ancient city in Bolivia. Once again, we see huge stone blocks weighing tens of tons. Some speculate that the stones were dragged along the trunks of trees, but others believe that they may have been helped by alien beings using anti-gravity techniques. Rectangular skulls were found at this site. Do these unusual shapes of the human head have any relation to aliens? Perhaps the main mystery of Tiahuanaco lies in the tools that humans use to achieve such delicate stone structures. For example, there are 8 shaped structures interlocking in a complex way. On the Gate of the Sun, there is a calendar that could go back millions of years. It may have been made by these guests from outer space. Next to the Gate of the Sun, there is a wall decorated with heads. Perhaps these are pictures of representatives of a strange civilization that visited the area. Who knows? The Pyramid Complex of Giza. Once again, we return to the pyramids. It was built, the complex of the 3 pyramids of Giza in Egypt, between 2490 and 2560 BC as tombs for the pharaohs and was intended to venerate the gods. The first and largest pyramid, also known as the Great Pyramid of Giza or the Pyramid of Khufu, was built around 2540 BC for the pharaoh Khufu. The height of the pyramid was originally about 146 meters and its base is 230 meters long. The length of the side ribs, as are the angles at the base of the pyramid, is approximately 90 degrees. All of this indicates that the ancient Egyptians had a high understanding of mathematics. Who gave them this knowledge, and how did they erect such an amazing structure? Did anyone help them? And if so, was it from aliens? That's all, guys. Do you think that aliens have visited Earth? Tell me in the comments.
What do you know about hieroglyphs? Egyptian hieroglyphs, the language of the gods. I hope you like the video. Egyptian hieroglyphs are among the oldest writing systems in the world, dating back some 5,200 years. Known in ancient Egyptian as the language of the gods, and said to have been created by the god of knowledge Thoth, hieroglyphs were vital in the fulfillment of royal duties and were used by powerful pharaohs and their scribes to record the achievements of their reign. Today, millions of hieroglyphs in sacred texts, sarcophagi, tombs, and monuments remain as memories of a highly civilized, bygone era. The ancient Egyptian writing system is a pictorial script with a huge number of characters, 24 of which stand for what would be recognized as letters. Others stand for complete words or combinations of consonants. There are between 700 and 800 basic symbols called glyphs, and there is no punctuation or indication of where words or sentences begin or end. The glyphs are usually read from right to left, top to bottom, and do not use spaces or punctuation. On the walls of temples and tombs in Egypt, they generally appear in columns. Priests used hieroglyphs to write down prayers and texts related to life after death and worship of the gods. When preparing their tombs, many citizens in Egypt had hieroglyphic guides of the afterworld written on the surfaces of tomb walls and on the insides of coffins. A karduch was a type of name tag on a sarcophagi, often reserved for royalty and was shaped in an oblong fashion, and can be also found on Egyptian monuments and papyri documents. Hieroglyphic inscriptions on temple walls and other monuments were used for decorative and sacred purposes. Parts of the Book of the Dead, a compilation of spells the ancient Egyptians believed would assist them in the afterlife, were inscribed on sarcophagi. Compared to another ancient writing system, namely cuneiform, hieroglyphics are without an identifiable precursor and much more obscure. They also differ from the Sumerian cuneiform form of writing in that they represent consonants only, while cuneiform script represents whole syllables, including vowels. The ancient Egyptians rejected the use of abstraction in their language, and hieroglyphs drew from many elements in the physical world around them. The most complete and obvious glyphs are those devoted to people and parts of the human body. However, animals and birds are another, just as equally important category. There are also glyph sections for tools and weapons, jewels, etc. Not everyone in ancient Egypt could read and write hieroglyphics, thus making their meaning incomprehensible to the common citizen. Only one group had this knowledge, and they were called scribes. In order to become a scribe, one had to receive an education at a special school, which could take several years to complete, and it was usually young boys who entered in at the age of 6 or 7. Scribes were indispensable to the pharaohs. These scribes may also have something to do with how long the ancient Egyptian language was able to survive, since hieroglyphs were seen as a gift from the gods. To alter or abandon them was as an act of sacrilege.